Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we have Heather Sports from Noble World and Tracy Beckenhauser from Adulting University. We also have a bunch of other people who are going to be joining us with pre-recorded videos. We have a bunch of back-to-school tips for you guys. For everyone who is starting homeschooling now or starting back up for the year. So I would love to hear a little bit about each of you guys and your expertise that you have or a background in homeschooling. So Heather, why don't you go first?
Sure. Well, let's see. I've been homeschooling since before I had kids, I always say. I started by working with a homeschooler who was teaching homeschooling students online at around 2010. And then I was tutoring homeschoolers and I did a whole bunch of things like that. And then I have actually been homeschooling my own kids ever since they started. They're now in going into grade 7 and grade 4. Sometimes I lose track. Yeah, grade 7 and grade 4. So a long time. And a couple of years ago, I started, wanting to make some resources for homeschoolers that I wished had existed. And so that's how Knowable World got started. So we're making history curriculum there.
That's awesome. So homeschooling wise, I am actually newer to the homeschooling world as a homeschooler myself. So I'm homeschooling my son for the first time this year. He's going into 6th grade. So that's been really fun. It's been something I've been working on him for a while now, but finally, he's finally open to that. Now we do have a great co-op that we're part of, which was good motivation for him because he's my social butterfly. He was like, I'm going to miss my friends. And I'm like, it's fine, buddy. We'll still do play dates and all the things. But I've been working with homeschoolers for off and on for years and years. So that's kind of Adulting University's whole focus is helping homeschool families and really helping them prepare their kiddos for life after high school. So
very cool. Okay, well, I want to share with everyone the Back to School magazine that we just published. We have a special focus on child-led learning this issue. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and take you guys through the latest magazine. So this one has a really cute theme, really focused on kind of those back to school stickers that you might put on your different notebooks and things like that that you might decorate your notebook with. We also have a link for you to be able to download the magazine. This is specifically opted for phones and tablets. So that's what the size is, so that you can be able to have this on the go. So you don't have to worry about having to view it on your computer. You can view it on our website, or you can even just download it onto your phone. So we have a lot of different great articles. We're talking about unlocking your teen's passion, a framework for student choice, the basics of success in homeschooling, teaching values in your homeschool, enriching your homeschool with music. Let's make sure that my screen is sharing here. I just realized I need to make sure. Yeah, okay, perfect. We're seeing that. We're also creating interest-based unit studies, incorporating intentional learning into everyday experiences. We're talking about gifted style learning for all, adding public speaking to your homeschool, interest-based extracurricular activities, essential homeschool health and PE checklist, 5 ways to help your students develop better math skills, customizing your curriculum for your kids' interests, and more. We actually have more articles in the magazine. These are just the top articles we have in here. We have back to school tips throughout the magazine from different homeschoolers in our community. We asked them for their best tips on being able for creativity and child-led learning and interest-based learning. So you're going to be able to get expertise and wisdom from a lot of homeschool parents. Here we actually are featuring our sponsor. So shout out My Homeschool Village. Thank you guys for sponsoring us. They are a online homeschool co-op. They have a lot of really fun classes that I would love for you guys to check out. We also have Noble World. That's Heather over here. And in the magazine, she's talking about her History Detectives online courses. We also have Spanish language lessons. And here's one of the articles that I was talking talking about single reading passages with Q&A and taking pages. We have back to school word search freebie. We have Little Iguana's educational activity boxes. We have a pre-K through 12 digital preschool curriculum. You actually get a special 10% off in the magazine. We are talking about art classes for teens to be able to use Procreate on their tablet, to be able to learn how to draw watercolor style or characters. We have a affordable middle school classes for ADHD, neurodivergent, and reluctant readers and writers that goes through the whole language arts skill. And we're talking about values and teaching values here. And Tiny Values actually has a free 20-page activity book to help you on your journey to start teaching values. We have adventure letters if you guys want to get some really fun mail that incorporates geography and history. And then we also have a homeschool success tips and tricks from the Homeschool Reading Partner. We have a plants and fungi unit study that is 85 plus pages that is in the AQ Club. We actually publish a new unit study every month, and we have several ones on space, plants and fungi, and we're going to be publishing one on reptiles and amphibians next. If you guys are looking for an umbrella academy, their Yugo World actually does have an umbrella academy that is really affordable like that. Definitely check it out. For a high school art credit, check out the Visual Mana's Google Classroom. It's only $25 and you get a ton of resources. If you guys are interested in ancient history, Insightful Scholar has some really great workbooks. If you're looking for math resources, I want to give an answer. Tampa Bay Test Prep, they have some really great math resources. They are actually doing a math pilot program this year that looks really fun. And if you guys are looking for science classes, Gina Jude Institute has a free lab class every month that you guys can participate in addition to their regular offerings. Or if you're looking for those like prep skills, like purpose, character, networking, faith, leadership, and essential information, check out Blue Manor Academy. They actually have a 30-day free trial. If you're looking for pre-K, kindergarten curriculum, we have something here for you. It's 1,200 pages plus of fun activities. If your kids are afraid of public speaking, I highly recommend that you check out the Speech and Debate Coach. They have a free class that you're able to get access to so that you can help your kid be a better public speaker. If you want to get more involved and explore diverse engagement opportunities for your teen, definitely check out this workbook from Adulting University. That's Tracy. That's available as a free download in the magazine. And if you're looking for music classes, there's actually a 14-day free trial from Music Duo. It teaches music literacy through fun folk songs, percussion, movement, and games. We also have our Homeschool Quest resource guide. That includes a bunch of freebies and affordable products that will help you back to school. As you can see, there is a ton of resources in this magazine, and I highly recommend that you guys go check it out. Many thanks to our contributors and to our moderator team. Thank you guys for checking this out, and I would love to hear from Heather on her back-to-school tips.
Sure. Well, that magazine looks amazing, and I'm really excited to check it out. There's always such good stuff in there, and I haven't seen this one yet, and I'm excited to go look at it now. Okay, so back-to-school tips. So I actually have some slides. Are we able to put those up?
Yeah, I'm just working on that now.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you. This is really bright yellow. I hope it doesn't burn anybody's eyes, but it's fun. It's the end of summer and I'm not ready to let go of summer. It's always a really hard time for me to transition. And I think it's harder for me than it is for my kids sometimes to like get back into that routine and let go of just kind of taking it easy all summer long. But I have done it many times now. And I do like to have a routine. That's the thing. It's hard for me to like switch routines, but I do find it really important for me to have a solid routine so that we know that we're moving towards our goals and, we know what we're doing every day. We don't function well on like no schedule, which some people do, and that's totally cool. But at our house, we need a routine. And so back to school for us is all about switching from our literally almost no routine at all in the summer, get up whenever we get up and do whatever we have to do, to actually we have a set time where we sit down and do our subjects. So it turns into a routine, and that's what back to school is like that transition. So my tips are for those who are doing that same thing, moving back into doing a little bit of school every day. And this is what I've kind of learned over the years that works. My 3 tips. So first of all, start small. Don't feel like you have to sit down on the first day and do your entire schedule. So for us, we have basically like one subject that our schedule is sort of built around because it happens at a specific time. So we start with that, and that's all we do. And maybe like half an hour or so beforehand, we'll start to get their binders ready and their stuff like that. So for the first week, that's it. We do one subject and, plus maybe a few other things, but not really learning. So ease into it, especially if you're super new at this. Don't feel like you have to do everything all at once. Start with what you're confident in and what you're excited about, especially what your kids are excited about, and build your routine around that and add things in over a little bit of time. Because if you try to do everything all at once, then it's like juggling plates, right? So you gotta start with something and then build on that. And that's totally okay if you don't do every single subject in the first month, even. That's fine. There are some entire years where we haven't done a certain subject, and it's fine. Over time, everything gets done. So just trust the process. Start with what you can start with and build on it. Okay, my tip number 2 is to know what your motivation is. And this sounds like a little bit of a fluffy tip, but it's so important because like some days things are going to go wrong. Some days you're not going to feel like doing it. Your kids are not going to feel like doing whatever, or you're going to try, get into a lesson and everybody hates whatever it is that you're doing and you have to start over, and it can be really discouraging. And so my advice is literally at the beginning of the year, talk to your kids, think about it for yourself. Like, what is the most important thing for me in my homeschool? What are our most important values here? Literally write it down and put it on the wall. And then when things kind of fall apart, you can look up at that and say, look, the most important thing in my homeschool is us having a good time as a family. The most important thing in our homeschool is that we enjoy learning. And you can go back to that instead of getting off track and saying, thinking that the most important thing is making your kid do 2 math worksheets today. That's never the most important thing. The most important thing is, that they love learning and they are going to learn. So you can kind of reorient to those bigger values, even when crazy things happen. Then you can get back on track. And okay, my 3rd tip is, again, it might seem like a little bit of a not super concrete tip, but I really think that this is important, and that is to celebrate early and often. So always be looking at the end of the day for what went right, for what your kids did, accomplished, even if it's small, even if something didn't happen the way you planned. Plans are great, but it never ends up looking exactly like you planned. Right? Something always changes. Something falls through the cracks. Something doesn't get done. But that's okay. A plan is just there to point you in the right direction. And at the end of the day, you look back and say, okay, what did we do? And what did my kids learn? And write those things down and celebrate with your kids. Take the time to do that and let them know that, that's what counts, is what actually happened, not what you didn't do. or not what didn't work, or not what there was conflict about, but what actually they did learn. And sometimes, that's a small thing. Sometimes it's going to be a really big thing. Sometimes, they finish a chapter of their math book and you can have a big celebration about that. Sometimes, they spell their name right. And that's okay. Like, then that's where they're at right then. And it's a win. So definitely have your plans, have your goals, set your sights high, and encourage your kids to do that. But then at the end of the day, don't measure yourself against, what you were hoping to accomplish. Take a look at what actually happened, the good parts, and appreciate them and teach your kids to do that. Because I think that's so important for learning, so important for keeping their motivation up over time, is to know that, that they can look at what they did and be proud of it, even if they didn't fully hit every single point in the plan, or whatever it was that was set as the goal. So those are my 3 tips. Celebrate early and often. Know what your motivation is going in so that you can reframe and get back to that, and start small and build up from there instead of feeling like you have to jump in to a whole routine right away.
I love that, Heather. What's really interesting is celebrating early and often, as you mentioned. That is something that we did in our homeschool, and then actually, as we all were starting to work in the marketing agency, that's something we actually incorporated into the work culture. So we actually would discuss, hey, what did we really accomplish really good this week, and celebrate everybody's wins. And that really created a really awesome work culture. So that is something that I think is, not only are you going to be motivating your kids, but you're also going to be teaching them to seek a really good working environment in the future where their wins are celebrated. So that is something that, just as from a homeschool graduate perspective, you're actually teaching them about what good leadership looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, and Tracy, are you ready to share your back to school tips?
Sure am. All right. So I don't have slides because I'm like a let's talk and I'm a talk with my hands kind of person. And I feel like conversationally with this one. So, and especially from what I do, right? When it comes to like life skills, time management is a big one. And it's an area that so many people struggle with. And I see that come up a lot with parents where they're new to homeschooling, or, oh my gosh, now we have kids at different areas and different grades, or they're just really struggling, right? Of like, how do I juggle all the things? Or they're working, or they're a single parent. And I think at the end of the day, the truly best back to school tip, on top of what was already said, which was also amazing, those are great tips. And I highly encourage that piece too, of having like your priorities first, know what you're going for, know what your goals are. That's the foundation. The next step is then that plan of making it happen. And I think having that, it doesn't mean it has to be a strict military type schedule. It can be something that is flexible and that can be adjusted as it goes. And as you go through things, and it can be like, oh, you know what? Didn't really like how we did that there. Let's shift it up for this next semester or for this next course. But having a plan, I can't emphasize that enough. And I'm telling this to you as somebody who not only homeschools, but owns a business and works a job and has a contract with another company and does and juggles all these things. But having that schedule, and like, I live by my schedule, right? And I live by my calendar. I'm like, here's what we do. I always joke with people, I'm like, if it's not my calendar, it's not happening. So having that plan in place and just really being able to help put boundaries. It's actually really funny we're having this conversation because I just did a podcast episode this morning on putting boundaries as a mom. And I apologize for my dog's barking. FedEx just came. It's good timing. See the chaos of home stuff. It's fine. But we're just talking about those boundaries. And I feel like as moms, especially, sometimes that is truly what the plan is what boundaries am I putting in place for my time, for my kids' time? Like, what are the focus? What are those things that are most important? And learning to say no and saying, you know what, we can't do that this time around. It's okay. Maybe next semester or maybe next time. But when we have the plan, when we have the goals, when we know what we're doing, what we're working towards, then we know what we say yes to and what we say no to. And I think that can be so helpful because otherwise you get really overwhelmed, right? We start to get overwhelmed. We start to drown and feel like I'm trying to juggle and do all these things with my kiddos. And then you see all other people's posts on social media and you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing enough? Am I not doing enough? Am I dropping the ball with my kids? But if you're like, no, what we're doing is working towards our goals. We have our plan. We're following our plan. We're saying yes to things that align with the plan and get us to our goals. And we're saying no to things that don't. Doesn't mean that next semester's plan or next year's plan doesn't change, but it's saying, hey, for now, we're going to stick to this and we're going to go with it. And we're going to make it work the best way we can. And then we'll evaluate at the end. And I think that's the other thing we tend to forget to do. We do the plan, but then we don't look back at the plan after we finish it. And so that kind of evaluation piece is so important because you can sit down with your kids and look back at the last semester, last year, and say, what went well? What didn't? Where can we make adjustments for the future? What does that look like for us? So what did you like? What did you not like? Having your kiddos input, especially, I work with preteens and teens, having them have a say in those things is huge, especially if you want them to be motivated, if you want them to be accountable. If they're not making their own schedule, if they're not having that responsibility there, those other pieces don't really come into play. So I think when it comes to that success of that academic year, you really need to be able to have that plan moving forward, be able to adjust and adapt as needed, be able to say no when it is required to say no, and then really reflect and evaluate back on it and make those changes for the future, and giving yourself grace through all of this, because at the end of the day, nothing ever goes according to plan. It's good to have one, but just knowing stuff happens, life happens, things are going to come up, things are going to change, and that's okay, right? You might drop the ball on something. That's okay. You can always pick the ball back up. It's not gone. And if it's deflated, you get yourself a new ball, right? So I think just having that mindset going into the school year and feeling more organized and structured and knowing, okay, let's try it out and then we can always change it down the road, I think can be so powerful, because otherwise you're just opening the door to be stressed and overwhelmed and feel like you're juggling all year long. And that's not fun for anybody.
And again, you're talking about modeling skills that they are going to take in the future and need. So both of you are discussing, modeling leadership, good leadership, about setting those boundaries, and then also making a really good schedule. So let's hear from some other panelists here. I'm going to share the video.
And the sinks should be done. The women's restroom sinks are being replaced. So the women's restroom does not have sinks at the moment, but I've seen them.
What your child wants to do when they grow up. I don't know if they want to be an architect, a designer, an engineer, an artist. I have no idea. But what I do know is that by the time our kids are going out into the world, 9 out of 10 jobs will require tech skills. And so even if they don't want to be a coder or a software engineer, chances are that their job will require them to be competent on a computer, and these skills will only help them in their profession. So as you're diving into planning this upcoming school year, I would highly, highly consider adding basic coding training or computer competency skills to whatever curriculum it is that you are planning for this year. The one caveat that I'll say is that don't compromise your values in this process. If you are comfortable adding screen time to your days that you have coming up, then go for it. But if you're more like me and very, very, very gun shy about adding anything that will require your child to be on the screen more than they are, don't compromise that. There are such creative ways to teach these skills. There are board games out there that will teach computer fundamentals and coding skills. There are entire curriculums being developed that are screen-free coding curriculums. There are just so many ways to teach these skills now. So I would say, the 2 takeaways, really consider teaching your kids are computer competency or coding or something like that to prepare them for the world that will meet them when they leave your homeschool. And 2, don't compromise your family values. In order to make that happen, be creative in looking for a solution that will be right for your family.
If you guys want to get more resources, they have that there.
My tip is to keep a bound notebook, and anytime we go on an adventure to the park or a science museum, the aquarium, or anything like that, we can write the date and either write some observations or even draw pictures of the things that we've seen. Then, if we go back to that same park later on, we can compare what we saw last time. And this is especially interesting as the seasons change and the time of day changes, that we can make some comparisons. And it's really fun to look back at the different dates and see the different drawings or the different observations. And it's such a fun activity to see science happening in nature.
As we begin this back to school season, I've got 3 things I want to encourage you with. The first one has to do with plastic, the second one has to do with freebies, and the third has to do with search engines. Here we go. Number 1, plastics. I am a mom of 4. I really struggled with the idea of being able to focus fully on my older kids while my younger ones were tiny. And I had our kitchen cabinet filled with the plastic plates, the plastic cups, the food containers, anything that wasn't breakable. I dedicated a full cabinet to that. The other ones I locked, and I said, all right, littles, you can stay right here while the rest of us are doing school, take everything out. And eventually they started putting it back in themselves. This was like a really low budget puzzle, you guys. It was a fantastic exercise for them and also helped give me the time to be able to focus on the people that I needed right in front of me that needed to do a little bit more structured schoolwork. Number 2 was freebies. Now, there are days when things just are going to go sideways, all right? So you can either take the day. You have the permission to do that. Take the day off. Or I have a folder that when I see a good free or low cost resource online, I'll print it off and I'll just stick it in the folder. Have a folder like that. This is one of those days where you can have your older kids kind of ruffle through, oh, I want to do this. Pick something out. This is student-led, interest-based, and it's actually a really good way to kind of set aside maybe the more formal schooling of the day and give them the chance to just do something else, reset, without feeling the guilt of not having finished something that day, which you're totally allowed to do anyway. And the third is search engines. Now, just a reminder, we are raising humans, not search engines. So remember, when your children go off out of your homeschool, whenever that may be, we want them to be great humans. How can you encourage them to be great humans today and in the coming school year? This does not mean they have to know every single fact. They are not a search engine. Search engines exist for that. What we can do is encourage them to have grace and mercy for the people around them, to be kind, to be generous. This is what we're looking for. Have a great school year. I'm so excited for you.
Hi, I'm Tracy Baconhaster, owner of Adulting University, and I wanted to give you a just quick tip for this back to school season. Start your year off with a plan, right? Have clear goals, sit down with your teenager, help them to really strategize what they want to get out of this year, what they want to learn, what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. It's going to set them up for lifelong readiness, right? That readiness for adulthood, for life after high school, which is what we're all about, right? We love this stuff. And break those goals down with your student. Help them to really understand, okay, this is my big goal. What are the parts and pieces that I need to do, the steps I need to take to get to that goal, and help them build that out. This will be awesome for their time management skills as well, and their organizational skills that they can put into practice by putting these steps into place. Having your teen have a say in their learning journey, they're more motivated and engaged. It also helps them build essential skills like time management and that self-discipline, setting a positive tone for the rest of the school year. So good luck. I hope it's an awesome year.
Hi, I'm Julie from Magicor Academy. To kick off your homeschool year on the right foot, my number 1 tip is to begin with the end in mind. Define clear goals for the year, break them down into monthly milestones, and then drill those further down into individual lessons. Make sure that these objectives are transparent and understandable for both you and your child. I also recommend involving your child in the goal setting process. This not only fosters a sense of ownership, but it also helps them grasp the purpose behind each lesson. This collaborative approach will set a focused, motivated tone for your school year ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Abby from Our Adventurous Animals, and this is my back to school tip. You need to have an art station set up. I've got a buddy with me, but I'm gonna show you this art station, and this is for a 3-year-old, but this really could be adjusted for any age. So first we have washable markers right on the top. This is so that he can access these at any time. There's crayons in here. We went through a very long process for a long time teaching him where and how he can use these items. So adjust this according to what your kids can do. We've also got crayons right here that he can grab easily. We have a clipboard. This is awesome because it means he can take it around the house to do school or coloring whenever he feels like it. Oh, this is one of my favorite things. Placemats. That way you can see all of the stuff we did on it. That way you can just grab this, stick it under whatever they're doing art with, and no mess. It's fantastic. We love our bluey one. In here we have more art supplies. I have a little watercolor palette right here. It's very cheap because no one is going to be giving expensive watercolors to kids. Just do cheap ones right now. That's in there. And then extra paper is in this right here, and coloring books. So really simple art station, and it's gonna be really helpful for you so that you can have some time by yourself and they can do this independently. And also it just encourages more art in your homeschool, which helps with creativity, which helps with enjoyment of homeschool. It's a big circle. It's all worth it, I promise.
Hello, moms. I want to just give you a few pointers, perhaps, and encourage you in the teaching and working with your children in the visual arts. You want to remember that when you teach art, the exciting thing is that there's not just one way to get it right. There's a lot of different ways. So you want to allow the children that freedom, because if you think about it, there's only one way to answer a math problem, one correct thing in grammar, one historical date. But in art, you can put things together and kids can come up with their own original ideas. It's really a catalyst for invention. It's a real quality time. And especially, I want to recommend that you maybe just 1 hour of real quality art time per week the children can look forward to. If you have children that love art, if you could put it in every day, it would be wonderful. But you can put it in along with your core subjects. Your visual and your kinesthetic learners will get to do hands-on art projects. I remember one time with my boys, which I did homeschool them, we were studying the Great Wall of China. And so I had him build it, which was so much fun, out of boards and everything. We built it, and we decided it looked more like Noah's Ark, so we went with that. But the idea is they can be creative. Another time with learning, kinesthetic and visual learners learn so well because there's Dale's cone of learning. And what you remember, it's like when you read about something, and then when you watch it, and then when you actually do it, and then when you teach it. One of the best projects that I had when we were homeschooling is we were studying the solar system. So my sons, we did the solar system, and then we made them out of paper mache, and they did solar system calendars, etc. And then we had a couple families over, and we had a really fun solar system time, and they got to do their presentation of what they learned. So the more art you can incorporate into your program, it allows for creativity and fun. So I want to encourage you to do that. I suggest for your supplies, I know that a lot of times if we're not a messy person, you want to just be careful with a mess. And I understand that, but I think colored pencils, oil pastels, watercolors, if you don't want to get into the acrylic paints, except at special times. I know some of you moms are so organized, but I always recommend at least cardstock paper. And because if you use a thin paper, it's very frustrating because if they do something really good, it tears easy and if you can invest in a heavier paper, you can find this bargain. You can go to bargain places and even thrift stores, and they sell, you find paper. So I really do recommend that. For younger children, fine motor skill development, of course, the scissors, the cutting, the pasting, the more fine motor, and for older children, of course, coming up with an original idea, it becomes their intellectual property. And there's so many different things that they can develop: characters, illustration, etc., copyright, etc. And I always recommend a trip to an art museum, because my idea is that you want to incorporate the masters into your lessons, like the techniques of Bierstadt, the techniques in atmospheric perspective, and you have painting techniques in Van Gogh's Starry Night, etc. But looking at masterworks of art, there's all kinds of testing that they've done that it does improve children's understanding of other subjects. And it's just like music is very good for them. So is art.
Hi, this is Ingrid with a math tip for you for going back to school. My math tip is take the time to go back and look over last year's material before diving into this year's. You're going to save yourself a lot of headache, save your child some stress by helping them to review some of the essential ideas from last year. Find out what they need to review by giving them a practice test or pulling example questions from throughout the curriculum. Once you've had some time to go over that, maybe a few days, maybe a week, then dive into the new curriculum. They'll be better prepared and they're going to enjoy it more.
Hello, I'm Terry Johnson, director and lead teacher of Believe Academy Online, as well as a homeschooling parent of a first grader and a preschool student. I wanted to share a few tips and tricks that I learned along the way that helped me on my homeschool journey. And my first tip is to not compare your homeschooling journey to someone else's. When you're first getting started, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and want to give up. And sometimes we ask advice, and even though some people's advice are very well meaning, it's very hard to compare what your child's learning style is and your family's availability to someone else's. And I had to learn that, I am doing the best job that I am doing. And, it's a judgment free zone out here. Also, I learned more in my homeschooling journey than I ever did as an educator. Prior to being a homeschool parent, I was a public school teacher of about 8 years. And then I decided to come home and teach my children. And I learned that a lot of the ways that I was teaching in the classroom just didn't apply at home. And I was trying to replicate a school experience at home. And it was an epic fail. So that is my tip number 2, not to try to replicate a school environment at home. The best thing about being at home is that you have that flexibility. You're able to learn in a non-conventional way, and you're able to tailor your child's interests into what you're learning. And that leads into my tip number 3. Make sure that whatever you're teaching is relevant and inspired by what your child actually wants to learn. For instance, if your child is interested about dinosaurs, then try to find books and videos and field trip experiences to enhance that learning. And let your child's inspiration be the guide for your lesson. So I tried the opposite before. I tried to create my own cute lesson plans by pinning stuff on Pinterest and looking on social media with all of these cute activities. And I brought them to the classroom, and my children weren't interested. And then after spending hours and hours of, creating these awesome lessons, they weren't very effective. And what I learned was actually taking their own interests into account. I created a much better learning experience for them and also for me, because it was less of a headache. Also,
being a homeschooling parent and just an educator in general, a lot of it is trial and error. So it's okay to evaluate what's working and enhance it along the way. Change up your learner routine. If your child is sleepy in the morning, then do more hands-on activities in the morning and more abstract topics at night. Well, I hope these tips helped you. And if you ever need help teaching your child at home, I have an online academy for ages 2 to 5, and I would love to have you all in my program. Have a great day. Bye.
Those were great tips.
Very good tip.
Okay. I think that those are some really great tips. I think that we covered a lot of different topics, math and art, schedules, and being kind to ourselves, I think, is the key thing that I was hearing throughout. Don't be so hard on yourselves. You don't have to replicate school at home. If that works for your kid, great. But you don't have to. You have the freedom of choice as a homeschooler, so design the schedule that works for you. And like Terry was saying, it does involve a little bit of trial and error, especially as you're figuring out what your teaching style is and what your kids' learning styles are, and being able to incorporate that into your homeschool. Well, I really appreciate everyone for joining us, and I'm really excited about the launch of the new magazine. Thank you guys so much for coming together and sharing all of these great tips.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great school year, everyone.